Welcome to CyberCast, decoding today's cyber issues. I'm Alexander Bolova, production lead at GovCIO Media and Research. With me today is staff writer researcher Nikki Henderson. Hi, Nikki.
Hi there, Alex.
You had the opportunity to chat with Mona Harrington, Assistant Director for the National Risk Management Center at CISA. How'd it go?
It went well. Mona and I had a great conversation. She talked about the overall mission of CISA's National Risk Management Center and what they're doing to reduce risk, cyber and physical risk to the critical infrastructure. So Mona also highlighted some of NRMC's innovative approaches to risk analysis and management. So it was just a real informative and productive discussion.
Yeah. So tell me more about the National Risk Management Center's priority risk management initiatives and how they are helping to counter evolving and more sophisticated threats.
Well, Mona said she actually co-chairs the Information Communications Technology Supply Chain Risk Management Task Force. And I know that's a mouthful, but she said it's responsible for identifying challenges and developing actionable risk-based recommendations and solutions that help to manage risks to the global ICT supply chain. So it's just critical to managing these threats and countering these threats because they are getting more sophisticated over time. And she said that the task force also provides helpful resources that assist other organizations with reducing overall risks as well.
Gotcha. And how is the NRMC supporting its customers and stakeholders, including other sister divisions?
When government and industry partners collaborate, Mona said this is a really beneficial thing for everyone because they all come together and they help each other recognize the most significant risk to the nation and they coordinate risk reduction activity. So she also talked about how the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative, which is another group, they are comprised of like-minded organizations across critical infrastructure sectors, and they have a common goal of also helping to reduce the overall national cybersecurity risk. So they've got a lot of just collaboration and partnership that's really helping them identify these risks and mitigate all the vulnerabilities.
And of course, we can't talk about cyber without talking about AI. So, what did Mona tell you about boosting cybersecurity around NRMC's AI systems?
Well, you're right, Alex. We cannot have a conversation without bringing up AI. It's just continues to be a main topic of conversation. And NRMC is definitely exploring a lot of opportunities with AI. Mona said that CISA's roadmap for AI, the agency actually released it at the end of last year. And she said it's mainly promoting the benefits of AI when it comes to enhancing cybersecurity. She said the National Risk Management Center is also examining how AI will introduce novel types of risks to critical infrastructure at the systemic level. So that's what they're looking at now.
Well, thank you, Nikki, for that introduction. And without further ado, let's take a listen to your conversation. Are you ready to take your organization's cybersecurity to the next level? Learn from the best and discover how you can secure, simply, and transform your organization at the Zscaler Public Sector Summit 2024. Join us on April 4th to gain valuable insight into secure modernization, network transformation, and the power of a true zero-trust architecture. Visit zscaler.com/federal to save your seat today.
Today, Mona Harrington, the Assistant Director for the National Risk Management Center at CISA, will be speaking with me about the mission of CISA's National Risk Management Center. She will be discussing the center's priority risk management initiatives, as well as some of the emerging technologies that are being used to detect threats and assess vulnerabilities. Hi there, Mona. Thanks so much for joining me on CyberCast.
Hi, Nikki. It's great to be here with you today.
Great. Well, before we get started, Mona, do you mind introducing yourself and just giving a brief description of your role?
Absolutely. So, as Nikki said, I'm Mona Harrington, the Assistant Director for the National Risk Management Center at the Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency. CISA was established in 2018, and it's really at the forefront of protecting our critical infrastructure from both physical and cyber threats. The National Risk Management Center that I oversee, our primary focus is really to understand, manage, and reduce risk by providing actionable risk analysis to our stakeholders.
Perfect. Well, let's go ahead and jump into our conversation. Well, Mona, can you start off by telling me about the key goals of the National Risk Management Center and where the center sits within CISA's mission?
Sure. Broadly speaking, the key goal, ultimately, the mission of the National Risk Management Center, also known as the NRMC, is to provide critical analytical support to CISA's mission to understand, manage, and reduce risks to cyber and physical critical infrastructure. And really, Nikki, what that means is that the work we do enables CISA and other critical infrastructure partners to apply actionable risk analysis to prioritize and support risk decisions to drive secure and resilient critical infrastructure for the American people. The center is uniquely positioned to have visibility across critical infrastructure sectors, which enables us to develop cross-sector risk analysis. And this gives us insights into how both threats and defenses are evolving, as well as the trends that may put the infrastructure Americans rely on at risk. I'm going to just take a moment here and tell you how we do this. We advance our analytic capabilities to anticipate and identify short, medium, long-term, and emerging risks. And we establish meaningful partnerships and programs to share, receive, and validate risk information. We work really hard to break down silos and provide a more holistic picture of the threat environment by filling in identified gaps across the sectors, by working with government and industry partners to really identify and understand and mitigate those risks. And we conduct analytical research and have outputs to include risk assessments to really better secure the nation's critical infrastructure and, of course, the national critical functions.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much for that, Mona. Well, what are NRMC's priority risk management initiatives, and how are they helping to counter evolving, more sophisticated threats?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nikki. The NRMC is constantly adapting our priorities to the continuously evolving threat environment. The complex threat environment means that risk faced by one sector cannot be managed alone and may have cascading impacts on multiple sectors, requiring coordinated cross-sector risk management. And as a result, many of NRMC's current priorities focus on cross-sector risk. Let me run through some of these priorities for you. So supply chain risk, to include ICT supply chain risk, and with that, our goal is to collaborate and educate and produce helpful resources to assist with reducing risk. The work is really critical to all sectors, given that we rely on technology. And if a vulnerability, for example, is exploited, it could affect all users and systems of that technology. I actually serve as the co-chair for the ICT Supply Chain Risk Management Task Force, which is a public-private partnership composed of a diverse range of representatives from large and small private sector organizations. And the task force is charged with identifying challenges and creating realistic, actionable, risk-based recommendations and solutions to manage risk to the global ICT supply chain. Really, if you think about it, we live in a system of systems world where ICT components and these foundational building blocks of hardware and software and services underpin a broad range of critical infrastructure and governmental functions the American people depend on. Other priorities, we support CFIUS, the Committee on Foreign Investment in the United States, which is an interagency committee authorized to review certain transactions involving foreign investment in the U.S. and certain real estate transactions by foreign persons in order to determine the effect of such transactions on national security of the U.S. We provide support and analysis there. Other priorities include space and space weather. Access to space-based capabilities is becoming increasingly important to all critical infrastructure sectors. As we see rapid growth of the space industry, we're working with space industry partners to ensure the space-based assets are secure and resilient as our terrestrial counterparts. We also have PNT, position, navigation, and timing. We've got a number of publications and guidance intended to inform both the producers of receivers and major end users of GPS receivers, enabling both groups to better understand and manage security risks. We also have our election security and resilience priority, where CISA supports the security and resilience of the nation's critical infrastructure, including the election infrastructure subsector. And we do this in part by ensuring that election officials and their private sector partners have the information they need to manage risk to their systems and infrastructure. And really, as we enter 2024, a major federal election year, our election work will focus on supporting election officials through information sharing, threat briefings, tabletop exercise facilitation, other election security trainings, and cyber and physical security assessments and other risk guidance and incident response, of course, as appropriate. We also, as a priority, identify emerging risk, and we have a dedicated group of experts that look at strategic foresight risks, really just recognizing the importance of anticipating emerging risks and focusing on that effort through that team to, put out things like Secure Tomorrow series toolkit that you can find on CISA.gov, which is designed to help critical infrastructure stakeholders have a better sense of the future threat landscape for the nation's critical infrastructure. Some of the things we focus on in that toolkit, like we've got a few new topics: brain-computer interfaces, synthetic biology, and quantum technologies. Another big priority area is artificial intelligence. As the nation's cyber defense agency and the national coordinator for critical infrastructure security and resilience, it's really incumbent on CISA to understand the benefits and risks of artificial intelligence and ensure that the nation's critical infrastructure is prepared and capable of managing the risks while leveraging the benefits. So the NRMC is conducting research and analysis on potential risks to critical infrastructure related to the use of artificial intelligence, as well as possible mitigation strategies. We also have an initiative under Connected Communities, which is essentially a comprehensive examination of technologies, networks, which are intended to enable connected communities, rural, suburban, urban, which leverage networks of connected technologies to provide more efficient, innovative, and sustainable infrastructure. So our work really focuses on mitigating the risks posed by those smart connected technologies that are supporting critical infrastructure communities. We actually released guidance, best practices for smart cities last year with that effort, and it was work that we did with the Five Eyes and the FBI and the NSA, and really great collaborative effort, and those best practices can be found on the CISA website.
Oh, wow. Mona, there's a lot going on at NRMC. It's all very exciting. Well, how does the NRMC support its customers and stakeholders, including other CISA divisions?
Thanks, Nikki. I really appreciate the question. That is so critical. Our analysis is very important, But without collaboration across CISA and with government and industry partners, the NRMC really can't achieve its mission. So it's through this critical partnerships and collaboration that the NRMC can identify the most significant risks to the nation and coordinate risk reduction activities to ensure critical infrastructure is secure and resilient both now and into the future. Our partners include the interagency, large and small businesses, SLTT, nonprofits, academia, all of which are crucially important to addressing risks to critical infrastructures. We really bring together government and industry to collaborate and reduce risk. And, CISA's got a joint cyber defense collaborative that is comprised of like-minded organizations across critical infrastructure sectors that includes IT and comms and transportation, energy and financial services, really with a common goal of reducing national cybersecurity risk. And that JCDC group, both interagency and private sector. We also coordinate with sector coordinating councils and government coordinating councils and working groups, like I mentioned earlier, the ICT supply chain risk management task force. We also have a space systems critical infrastructure working group, which is great interagency coordination. And we really work through a number of other working groups to ensure that that partnership and collaboration is active and we have a really productive dialogue regarding risks to critical infrastructure.
Okay, perfect. Well, Mona, what steps is the Risk Management Center taking to create more innovative approaches to risk analysis and management?
Sure, that's really important. The NRMC innovates by identifying emerging risks, which I just mentioned a little bit ago, and developing risk mitigation and best practices on many risk areas. And so we put a lot into investing into our analytical capabilities and tools. We've got teams of analysts that focus both on risks to critical infrastructure as well as, emerging sources of potential risk. The National Infrastructure Simulation and Analysis Center, NISAC, is located within the NRMC. And it is the development arm for risk analysis. It focuses on building advanced analytic tools that put comprehensive, quantitative, and actionable information in the hands of users. And it really, creates solutions for analytic requirements across the critical infrastructure community. One of NISAC's tools is the suite of tools for the analysis of risk, also known as STAR. And STAR connects critical infrastructure assets, sectors, and functions through uniquely integrated analytic tools, capabilities, and data sets for the first time within CISA. And STAR helps our analysts understand interdependencies among the national critical functions and the critical infrastructure assets. So STAR currently contains about 1.8 million validated and verified interconnected critical infrastructure assets across all critical infrastructure sectors. And that number just continues to grow with our investments and our innovative approaches to risk management. And the analysts can use STAR to respond to requests from stakeholders for incidents like a hacked utility, a breached facility, or an emerging threat in a variety of ways. An analyst can determine potential impacts based on dependencies and can identify other vulnerable assets of the same type or in the same area. And they can even characterize potential degradation of national critical functions or assets from outages. And they can also estimate the cross-sector cascading impacts based on dependencies.
Okay, awesome. Thanks for sharing that about STAR. That was very interesting. Well, we're getting ready to touch on AI. Everyone's talking about AI, and it has gotten some criticism And it's also very beneficial, though. And I wanted to ask you what emerging technologies are being used to detect threats and assess vulnerabilities? And what is NRMC doing to boost cybersecurity around its AI systems?
Yeah, sure, Nikki. I know AI is a big topic. CISA's mission sits at the intersection of strengthening cybersecurity and protecting critical infrastructure, and plays a role in ensuring that AI is safe, secure, and resilient, starting with being secure by design. Artificial intelligence is a new area of exploration for everyone. And the advances, AI applications and adoption are happening very rapidly. I think you might be familiar, on November 14th of 23, CISA published its first roadmap for artificial intelligence. And this roadmap is a whole of agency plan aligned with the national strategy to address our efforts to promote the beneficial uses of AI to enhance cybersecurity capabilities, ensure AI systems are protected from cyber-based threats, and deter malicious use of AI capabilities to threaten the critical infrastructure Americans rely on every day. And, towards these goals, NRMC is conducting research and analysis on potential risks to critical infrastructure related to the use of AI, as well as possible mitigation strategies. NRMC is also examining how AI will introduce novel types of risks to critical infrastructure at the systemic level.
Okay. Well, I want to know. This is one of my favorite parts of the interview here. I wanted to know if there were any future cyber initiatives that you're excited to talk about.
Yeah, Nikki, we have a number of really exciting cyber initiatives we're working on, but I'll highlight one that I think is really going to move the needle. The work we're doing on sector risk assessments for critical infrastructure sectors, really where CISA serves as the sector risk management agency. That said, the work is not limited to cyber risks. So essentially, the objectives of these sector risk assessments are to promote the security and resilience of critical infrastructure, engage stakeholders and other experts to identify nationally significant risks relevant to each sector that require collaborative planning, to clearly identify the critical infrastructure and the dependencies that present risks, assess consequence and likelihood, facilitate sector and national mitigation efforts to reduce risk. So really excited about the work around that.
Yes, that is very exciting. Thank you so much for sharing that. Well, that was amazing. I really appreciate you sharing all the exciting details about what's happening at CISA's National Risk Management Center. And I hope that maybe down the road you can come back, visit us, and share an update. That would be wonderful. So thanks again, Mona, and I hope that you have a wonderful day.
Thank you.
Thank you, Nikki. It was great to hear from Mona Harrington. Before we let our listeners go, do you have any last highlights or takeaways that you want to leave our listeners with?
Well, I just want to highlight again that there are just really great things happening at CISA's National Risk Management Center, especially with the ICT Supply Chain Task Force, and that was established, as well as the Joint Cyber Defense Collaborative. So, one other thing I do want to mention that Mona talked about, she said they're really trying to move the needle with sector risk assessments. She said they will promote the security and resilience of critical infrastructure, as well as engage stakeholders to kind of help with identifying national significant risks relevant to each sector. And that requires collaborative planning. So it's just really exciting right now for the National Risk Management Center and at CISA overall.
Definitely. And this is Mona's second appearance on CyberCast. I know that she appeared a couple years ago with our ransomware mini-series. So now that we've had her on twice, I guess I'm looking forward to hearing from her again sometime in the near future. Well, Nikki, thank you again for that great conversation. Listeners, if you are hearing this CyberCast, that means that you have found our new consolidated podcast feed, GovCIO Media and Research Podcast, where you're getting not just CyberCast, but GovCast and HealthCast as well. So we hope that you're enjoying all this extra content in one convenient place. If you like what you heard, make sure you leave a review and a 5-star rating on the podcast platform of your choice. And hey, tell a friend. We always appreciate growing our audience. We'll be back next week with a brand new podcast. But until then, thank you for listening. I'm Alexander Bolova.
And I'm Nikki Henderson.
Thank you for listening. CyberCast, along with GovCast and HealthCast, is a production of GovCIO Media and Research. To explore our content, visit our website, govciomedia.com. Keep an eye out for new episodes every Tuesday. And if you like what you heard, leave us a review on the podcast platform of your choice. Have a topic you want us to discuss? Contact us at newsletter@govcio.com.